Are you hungry? I have an apple pie here. The words landed softly, but they carried a weight I wasn't prepared for. I looked up from my spot on the curb, blinking against the glare of the late afternoon sun. A woman stood in front of me, holding out a small, neatly wrapped package. She wasn't dressed fancy, just jeans and a comfortable-looking sweater, but something about her seemed out of place. Not in a bad way, just different from the usual folks who passed me by, pretending not to see me. I hesitated. Taking charity always made my stomach twist. I wasn't used to it. 5 years ago, I was the one handing out bonuses, signing contracts, making big decisions. I had built a real estate empire from the ground up. Back then, I didn't worry about where my next meal would come from. Then the financial crash hit, and everything crumbled. My company, my savings, my home gone. The people who once shook my hand with eager smiles suddenly stopped returning my calls. I had prided myself on being self-made, but the truth was, I had been one bad year away from losing everything. And when that bad year finally came, no one reached out to catch me. Now here I was, a 65-year-old man, sitting on the edge of a sidewalk, being offered an apple pie by a stranger. "Go on, take it," the woman said, her voice soft but firm. "It's still warm." The smell of cinnamon and baked apples drifted up to me, making my stomach tighten with hunger. I hadn't eaten anything decent in 2 days. Still, my pride screamed at me to refuse. I had worked too hard in my life to end up like this, to end up a charity case. Then my stomach growled. Loudly. The woman raised an eyebrow, amused. "Fine," I muttered, reaching out. "But only because it smells better than the gas station sandwiches I've been living on." She let out a soft laugh and handed me the package before sitting down beside me on the curb, as if we were just two old friends sharing a meal. I took a bite. It was perfect, flaky crust, sweet apples, just the right touch of nutmeg. For a moment, I let myself close my eyes and savor it, letting the taste remind me of something long forgotten. "You make this?" I asked, mouth still full. She smiled. "Nope. Got it from a little bakery down the street. Best in town." I nodded approvingly. "Good choice." A comfortable silence settled between us as I ate. She didn't rush me, didn't bombard me with questions, didn't look at me with pity. That was new. After a while, she spoke again. "So what's your story?" I glanced at her, debating whether I should give her the short version or just shrug her off entirely. But there was something about her that made me want to answer. Maybe it was the way she asked, genuinely curious, not just being polite. "Not much to tell," I said, brushing crumbs from my jacket. "Had a business. Lost it. Ended up here." She nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "That's tough," she said simply. I let out a dry chuckle. "Yeah, that's one way to put it." She didn't ask me what I did wrong. Didn't press for details. Just sat there, watching the cars pass by. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I expected her to leave after that. Most people did. They'd give you $1, a sandwich, or a half-hearted "God bless you" before moving on, satisfied with their good deed for the day. But Margaret, because that's what she told me her name was, stayed. "Charles, right?" she asked, brushing a stray leaf off her jeans. "Yeah. Nice to meet you, Charles." I huffed a laugh. Don't hear that too often these days. She tilted her head. "Why not?" I gestured vaguely to my current state. Rumpled clothes, scuffed shoes, the general air of someone who had lost a fight with life and was still lying on the mat. "People don't usually want to get to know guys like me," I said. She studied me for a moment. "Well, that's their loss." I snorted. "You always this optimistic?" "Not always," she admitted. "But I've learned that people aren't always who they seem at first glance." Something about the way she said it made me pause. But before I could ask, she changed the subject. "So tell me," she said, leaning back on her hands. "Before all this, what kind of business did you run?" I hesitated. Talking about the past wasn't something I did much these days. It felt like digging up an old corpse, pointless and unpleasant. "Real estate," I finally said. "Had my own firm. Big office downtown. Thought I had it all figured out." She nodded. "What happened?" I exhaled through my nose. "The market crashed." I lost everything. Simple as that. Margaret didn't give me the usual pitying look. No murmured I'm sorry. Just quiet understanding. Life's funny like that, she said. One minute, you're on top. The next, you're wondering if an old granola bar in your coat pocket is still edible. That made me laugh. A real, honest-to-God laugh. You speaking from experience? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Margaret smiled, but there was something unreadable in her expression. You could say that. For the first time, I felt like I should recognize her. There was something familiar about her face, but I couldn't quite place it. Ever think about starting over? She asked. I let out a bitter chuckle. At 65? Not exactly prime job hunting age. She shrugged. Stranger things have happened. I wanted to argue, but before I could, she pulled something from her bag and handed it to me, a neatly folded business card. My friend runs a small community program, she said. They help folks get back on their feet, jobs, housing, that kind of thing. You should check it out. I stared at the card, my fingers tightening around it. People like me didn't get second chances. Not really. But then again, I hadn't expected an apple pie either. And somehow, that had changed everything. I sat there, staring at the business card in my hand. It wasn't anything fancy, just a name, a phone number, and the words Community Outreach Program printed in simple black font. But it felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more weight than just ink on paper. I should have just thanked her, nodded politely, slipped the card into my pocket, and pretended like I'd think about it. But instead I scoffed. Look, Margaret, I said, shaking my head. I appreciate the pie, and I know you mean well, but I've been down this road before. These programs, they don't really help guys like me. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Guys like you. You know, old guys. Guys who had their shot and blew it. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my graying hair. The world doesn't hand out do-overs. And even if it did, I wouldn't know what to do with one. Margaret studied me for a moment. Then, out of nowhere, she let out a chuckle. Not a polite chuckle. A real, full-bodied laugh. I frowned. Did I say something funny? She wiped at her eyes, still grinning. Oh, Charles, she said, shaking her head. You sound exactly like someone I used to know. There was something in her tone that made my stomach twist. A strange déjà vu crept up my spine, but I couldn't place why. Yeah. I leaned back against the brick wall. Who's that? She exhaled, a small smile playing on her lips. Me. I blinked. You? She nodded. Years ago, I was a single mother with a young daughter. No job. No experience. Barely scraping by. I was desperate. A strange tension settled in my chest. I walked into an office one day, she continued. A real estate firm, downtown. I had no business being there, but I was desperate enough to try. I asked for a job, any job. A secretary, a receptionist, even just cleaning the office at night. Something cold slithered down my spine. Margaret kept her eyes on me, watching carefully. And you know what the man in charge told me? I knew. I knew before she even said it. He said no, she continued softly. He told me I wasn't qualified, that he needed someone with experience, that this was a business, not a charity. My breath caught in my throat, because I remembered. I remembered a woman, young, tired, holding back tears, standing in my office, pleading for a chance. I remembered the way I had dismissed her, too busy, too wrapped up in my own success to care. And now, decades later, that same woman was sitting beside me, offering me a second chance. I let out a shaky breath. Margaret, that was me, wasn't it? She didn't answer right away. But the way she held my gaze, steady, unwavering, told me everything I needed to know. A bitter laugh bubbled up in my throat. Well, I muttered, rubbing a hand over my face. Karma sure knows how to bake. Margaret chuckled, shaking her head. It's not karma, Charles. It's just life. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the business card. Margaret patted my knee, standing up and brushing off her jeans. But you know, she said, life's funny like that. You never know when you'll be the one needing kindness. Then, with a small nod, she walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. And an apple pie wrapper crumpled in my lap. I sat there long after Margaret had gone, staring at the business card like it held the answer to some cosmic joke I had been too blind to see. Life had a way of humbling you. For years, I had believed in self-reliance, hard work, merit. I had built my business from the ground up, and I had convinced myself that anyone who truly wanted to succeed could do the same. That's why I had turned Margaret away all those years ago, because I had thought she should work harder, because I had believed I would never need help. Now I was the one sitting on the curb, wondering if someone might give me a chance. I turned the business card over in my hand, my chest tight. I could toss it, pretend today never happened, stay right where I was, convincing myself that people like me didn't get second chances. Or I could do something different. For the first time in a long time, I considered the possibility. Maybe I didn't have to stay like this. Maybe I didn't have to let my past mistakes define me. Maybe, just maybe, kindness wasn't just something you gave. Maybe it was something you had to learn to receive, too. With a deep breath, I pushed myself up off the curb. My knees ached, my back protested, but I straightened as much as I could. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I walked to the nearest payphone. And I called the number on the card. It rang twice before someone picked up. Hello, this is the Community Outreach Program. How can I help you? I hesitated, gripping the receiver. This was it. The moment where I had to decide if I was going to keep being the man I had been, proud, stubborn, unwilling to accept help, or if I was finally ready to change. I swallowed hard. My name is Charles Whitmore, I said, and I think I could use some help. There was a brief pause. Then, the voice on the other end softened. Well, Charles, they said, you've come to the right place. I closed my eyes and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. And it had all started with an apple pie.